when I was quite young, 11 years old, I was riding, horseback riding, and my horse fell, and I was thrown over its head, and it landed on my chest. And all the breath went away all at once. And I was alone. It was a stupid thing I did to ride alone. And luckily, this beautiful woman and her friend came along, and she got with me, and she said to me, "You're not breathing, and your lungs have been flattened. And if you don't breathe soon, you're going to die." And I remember that feeling of, oh my God. And I went into a place of um, probably, how would I explain it now? Then I just explained it that I wasn't there. I felt myself to be the sky. I felt myself to be not myself. I wasn't there. And she made me breathe. And my first breath was like this huge pop when my lungs finally opened up, because she made me take a breath. And it was almost impossible. And there was this huge pop. My lungs came back. And suddenly I realized what the breath was in a very non-thinking way, because I was about to die without it. And yet, in that place of so-called dying, I felt this sense of expansion and openness. And of course, I couldn't even explain it then. I was too young. So she took me back on this horse, and I remember feeling, wow, what just happened? You know, it was quite amazing. So in later years, when I started to um, uh, want to be with, actually, my first teachers were ascended masters, because I asked for that, but it was long ago. And Yogananda talked about awakening as something that would take you maybe thousands of years. I mean, it was so different back in the 70s. So I remember thinking, oh my God, so this may take another 1,000 years. So I just, get used to it. So he presented the Kriya breath. And for years, we did the Kriya breath and sat in meditation in the morning and meditation at night. And so for me, being with you and a few others who say, oh, it can happen right now. And then, of course, it happened for me. But I can't say that it happened in that way, that explosive way that many people talk about. It was more little by little. And then there were a few times where I had mystical experiences. And those were just, just head on, just opened up totally. And I wasn't there, and there was just light. And that was wonderful. But I came back to this being and this body. And so the breath became my way of totally grounding in the present moment, because then one of my teachers was Jeshua, was Jesus, and he said the breath is holy, and be with the breath, and you'll find you'll just be with your real true self. And little by little, just realizing that. So I did a lot of different breaths as I became a yoga teacher. And some of them were the typical ones, but it was the ones, he gave a breath called love's breath. And Rumi made a statement. There's a breath that suffocates you and makes you anxious. And then there's a love's breath, which allows you to open to your true self. And that breath was pretty amazing. And it was after the Kriya breath and all of the Eastern approach. It was a mystic Christ approach, I suppose they call it, the mystic Christ path. But after that breath, I realized that that 11-year-old experience had really opened me up to something very important, was this holy breath. And Joshua said, the breath is the physical manifestation of Holy Spirit in the body mind. And you, I think, have talked about that also. So the breath, for me, there are 2 or 3 breaths that I do every day. And that feeling of expansion and opening is what the breath can bring. So I feel, for me and for many of my students, it's been this amazing experience of, I think, what happens to us through thought, too much thought, and too much of trying to analyze, as you say, is that we become contracted, and the body feels it as tension, this awful tension in the body that people get used to. I feel it. And when I started teaching yoga, what I saw is that people weren't breathing. They were living in this contracted state. And for me, being able to give them something that could open that up into light. And what I started to feel was that breath was light. And then I started to realize, well, awareness is light. And it was all this light that we have access to, that we are truly, and feeling that through the breath and allowing that was just being with God. It was being with our God self. And so for me, it's been, I think you said sometimes you have these mystical experiences and you think, oh, I'm it. That's it. And then here you are. So I think these experiences are absolutely incredible. And you may come back and say, oh, well, that was wonderful. And here I am. Here I am. So here I am. And what can you say? There's nothing to say. But we're all this pure awareness, which is pure light, which is pure love, which is pure spirit. And when we get it, that all these words that we try so hard to find those words that express what we are. And in the end, it's just being together and seeing that you are a reflection of me. You are who I am. I am who you are, is just the beauty of being, the beingness that we all are. And so when we can come together and allow that breath, perhaps for me, it brings me into presence. And that's where I spend a lot of my time now. And these amazing beings who are here to help us, and who, when I first started asking for help, and then Jesus appeared through light as light, and what he didn't come to me. I kept hoping that he'd come, in full glory. But what happened was I went into Christ consciousness, and I was in this place of light for 6 hours or so. And when I came out, it was like, wow. So when you ask for Christ, you're asking for your own self to make itself known.
Perfect.
And that was beautiful. And when I came out, I said, I want to be with people who want more of God, who want God, that's because what else is there? I mean, truly, what else is there? There's sex, and that's really wonderful, but compared to Christ consciousness, even it becomes, oh my. And I know you know what I mean, all of you.
Oh, I love it.
So it's a wonder to find others. And when I found Chris, and I could see that he was pointing to just what we are. just what we are. And I had to be awakened at 11 to the fact that without the breath, you will go to the other side. But now I know the other side is pure heaven. And so then I said, well, maybe, that's okay too. So I'm so happy to be. I'm so happy to be with all of you. And I see the Christ in all of you because that's who we are. That's who we are. We are the Christ. And
Wow.
yeah, Jeshua is an amazing teacher, but then you are the Christ. So there's no separation. I guess for me, realizing no separation was, it was glorious. It was glorious.
If you found this video helpful, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing. Thank you. All my love.